Welcome back, everybody, to Couples in Conversation. This is continuing the conversation. If you did not see Monday's episode, I highly encourage you to go watch that because we are picking up exactly where we left off from that conversation. We were talking about battle wounds, and we were talking about, is it appropriate for a spouse to leave? Does that cause a detriment? Does it help? And then we ended that conversation and we were talking about abuse. And apparently that kind of sparked some people's interest, and some people have some comments about my use of the word abuse. So what I said in the previous episode, if you did not watch it, head on over to the Couples in Conversation page and watch that now. So I made the comment and the statement that nagging can be abuse. And I had several women, my wife included, saying that nagging is not abuse. What I was speaking to was, we sometimes call it nagging, but it can actually be abuse. I'm not saying nagging in its natural form is abuse. I'm saying that sometimes when it comes down to a man, we use the adjective nagging when we really do mean abuse. So I wanted to clear that up.
Can you give an example, Mills? Give an example of that.
Absolutely. Can you take out the trash? Can you take out the trash? Can you take out the trash? You know what? I'll take out the trash myself because you ain't nothing but a no good so-and-so. You ain't take out the trash and I'm in this by myself. So we moved. So the nagging part is the, can you take out the trash? Can you take out the trash? But once you move to the, you ain't nothing but a this, and this, now we're at abuse. But because I have already identified that as nagging, you keep on with that nagging. So that's what I mean by it can go from nagging to abuse. Thank you for asking me for that example. We're going to go ahead and start with Christina.
Like he dropped the hammer or something. Like, what? He dropped the mic. Okay, buddy.
So I'm going to address that abuse, but real quick, I just want to clarify some things. Generally speaking, heading back to accountability real quick, generally speaking, I do think men have a harder time with accountability than women. I do agree with that. However, in my relationship, Jay is accountable for things.
Tell him.
More so than I am. I am accountable. Like, don't believe him when he said I'm not, but he is more accountable than I am. So I just want to clear that up real quick. But anyway, as the abuse, the reason you can't call, take out the trash. Take out the trash. Can you please take out the trash? You said you would take out the trash. The reason you cannot call that abuse, because if you had just taken out the trash like you said you would,
like a good little boy.
No, like you said you would, then I wouldn't have to repeat that anyway, and then we wouldn't even be having a conversation of abuse. You can't. The only reason we're saying things over and over, or we're talking your ear off, is because you're just not doing the simple things that we ask you to do. And so now you want to try to flip the script and say we're abusing you. Come on.
An issue with your nagging, though. Your nagging is okay, but when that nagging moves from you telling me something over and over because I'm not doing it on the specified time that you have given, you have moved from nagging to abuse, is what I'm saying. So
we wouldn't have called you the low down, dirty, whatever the case may be. If not to say that people even do all of that, but we would not have done that if you had just taken out the trash like you said you would, or just did whatever it was you said that you were going to do. It's never okay to put somebody down, but people do reach their limit. People do have breaking points like, dude, I just asked you to take out the freaking trash. Do it.
Thank you. Reclaiming your time. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, so the beginning part of that was nagging. The end part of that was abusive. However, you was extreme with that because that's not even a real example. So can you give us a real example of something that really happens that you feel like would be abuse? Because I don't think that's, because you're saying that a lot of men characterize it as nag. Hold on, no, that's never happened. But a lot of men, you said a lot of men they say something is nagging, and it goes from it's not really nagging, it's actually abuse. But that beginning part was nagging and abuse. I feel like a lot of men use the word appropriately when it comes to nagging, but in order to get your point across, you try to change it into abuse. I'm not saying women can't be abusive. I'm not saying that verbal abuse is different than physical abuse. They're on the same playing field. Abuse is abuse. But what I'm saying is you have to be honest when it comes to that. Like, yes, both parties can be abusive, but in reality, men are more abusive than women. However, I do feel like women are more verbally abusive than men are. Men are more physically abusive than women are.
Tammy?
One thing that I don't do is I don't take that word abuse lightly. And when I say that someone is being abusive, it's definitely abuse. It's not a thought or question. Now, when we talk about what defines abuse, calling anyone out their name is abuse. Period. I don't care if it's the male or woman. You don't call each other out your name. I don't care how much they're getting on your nerves. You can ask me to take out the trash 50 million times, but when you try to make him feel less of a man because he didn't take out that trash, that's abuse. And that is not acceptable in a relationship. Just like a man may make a woman feel bad saying she's not doing her sexual desires, and if another woman may do it, that's abuse. Anything to make a person feel bad or feel less of themselves that's really going to hurt them, that's abuse. And you should not want to do that to your mate, period. It's not acceptable at all. And I think that we need to focus on examining what the true meaning of abuse is and work on it in our community, because it's really sad that so many people suffer from abuse, and it really takes a toll on you, your family, your kids, your relationship. Like, we really need to get a hold to this abuse. I think we need to have a whole discussion on abuse.
Thank you. I am coming to Deanna next, but I just want to say this. I have always said this from the beginning, I am very different than a lot of men I know because I am very sensitive and I am very emotional. And things for me escalate to abuse very quickly. That's all I want to say. Go ahead, Deanna.
I think what everyone is really saying is that there are triggers, right? So what me telling you someone to take out the trash may not trigger someone else. It's really about knowing what the expectations are and what the limits are of that person. I also think that that as a woman, I am learning that different strategies work differently, right? Trash situation. I'm only going to ask you twice to take out the trash, right? Then I'm going to take the trash myself, and I'm not going to say anything else to you about it. Either you're going to see me in the process and you're going to feel guilty and take the trash, or that's just not something that you're going to do. So why even have the conversation, right? You really got to see, I feel like you also have to see what battles are worth fighting too. Because if you get so worked up over something so minuscule, how can you even deal with something big? One thing. Another thing is, a lot of times people argue over little bitty things when it's really bigger things that are triggering them, right? So then you, as an individual, you really got to dig deeper and figure like, am I mad? Am I angry? You know, like, am I hurt, right? Am I mad? Am I annoyed? Do I feel ignored, right? You really have to figure out what the trigger is, because a lot of times you're reacting from 6 or 7 different situations, not just the one. And then when you are pouring out that emotion, it's from all of the things that you've experienced. So I think we have to, as women, do a better job of separating the emotions of the situation, and then also realizing that as a woman, it's just got to get done. Some things just got to get done. So if you're not going to do it, that just means you don't have a place in my life. Obviously, that's not always the case when you're already married. But for me, it just got to get done. That's just how I operate. Either you're going to be a help or you're going to be gone.
All right, Toylise.
Oh, I didn't have anything. I agree with Deanna. I mean, I listen. We ain't got time to go through all that stuff. Listen, you got to know what you want, and if you're not, you got to know what you're going to accept and not accept. I do not believe that nagging can be abusive. Nagging is nothing but just repetition. Because obviously somebody didn't get the point. Now, if you don't want to have somebody keep going at it, then just do it. Because Toylise say I nag all the time. But I do agree that when you do say something to demeanor somebody, to degrade them, that can be abusive. So when Frank said that it can turn into it, some people may take that nagging as the way to be abusive. Mm-hmm. But nagging in itself, to me personally, it's not abusive. In regards to our relationship, like I said, my wife says I nag all the time. One of my pet peeves is a clean
No,
house.
I don't say you nag.
What do you say?
Use the correct word.
Well, what do you say?
It start with a W.
I don't know.
Whine.
Same thing. I'm saying the same exact thing over and over and over and over again. And she'll get upset and say, what do you say? Stop whining. You're acting what?
Yeah, that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. We're claiming your time. We're going to Jason, and then we're going to get to our last topic of the night.
Yeah, back to what I was saying with regard to, I think a lot of it is like a confusion, because a lot of times you hear, not even confusion, but I think it's misrepresentation. You hear a lot of women say male toxic masculinity, and you hear a lot of women say, well, depending on what happened in a man's life, if his father was there, if he was a good father, if he was a bad father, men experience male toxic masculinity. But I don't think it's considered with regard to our counterparts, our Black women, when they understand that you are our sisters. So the same toxic masculinity that we discovered or we experienced, you experience a high level of toxicity, whatever you want to call it, of with regard to how they grew up also. And so that's never addressed. And so a lot of things that as a man we find on our shoulders is dealing with that masculine or toxic masculinity, but it's not the same. It's not the same on the other end when it comes to women. They don't address, and that I've experienced, address some of the things that they've been through, some of the issues they've seen with their mother. Because if they grew up in a single parent household as men, then the women did too. And so that unbalance of a complete household or a functional household was not experienced on their end too. And so a lot of that is what I mean by not taking accountability for their own actions. And if you notice, you'll never hear a woman, or you'll never see a status where a woman is just like, in my opinion, just like, you know what, I'm gonna fall on the sword. This is what I did. This is what I need to correct. And even in the episodes, you don't really hear that. You always hear, well, this is what the man did. Men do this, men do that. When it's ever back on the women, it's always a defense mechanism, and it's always, I have to defend myself, rather than being like an accountability and saying, you know what, my attitude is a problem. The way that I approach you, the way I respond to you is a problem. This is something I need to fix. It's never like that. It's just, I'm strong and I need to do this and I need to be this way, so just deal with it.
Okay, so, and I know I see your hand. I know we took a little turn, and so Deanna, you can respond to that, but first I want to give the next question, because right after that, we're going to go into the next phase of the episode. So our next question that we're going to be discussing is, when and if you decide to leave the relationship, are you defying, are you going against, are you tearing down the for better or for worse commitment? So we're going to dissect that. So Deanna, you can answer this, and then we're heading over to the bells.
Okay, I was just gonna piggyback off of what Jason just said. I do think that a lot of times we don't fully express how much we've internalized from like what we did or didn't experience from our relationships with our fathers, and how we saw them interact with our mothers. I also think as women, we don't necessarily always know that silence is a tool, right? Like moving in silence can really be a tool. And I think as Black women, because we feel so unprotected, our voice has become a tool. But when we're in a relationship, it's kind of hard to then constantly remind yourself that you're safe now, right? You are protected. You don't have to, this person is on your team, not necessarily, this isn't someone competing with you. And so I definitely think there is a real adjustment period for women when you are, coming out of abandonment issues and really trying to remind yourself that you're not alone anymore.
I agree with that totally. The bells?
Go ahead. Oh, so on to the next question?
Yes.
Answer. I personally don't feel like you are defying the for better or for worse. And going back to what we talked about in the first half, when it is cases of abuse or cheating or, some of those things that are past your breaking points. I feel like God is not the author of confusion, and he wouldn't want his children to, live under such stressful marriages of abuse and stuff like that towards one another. And, I believe the Bible even talks about people cheating and stuff like that, and you being able to step away. But I don't feel personally that you're going against it when you are past your breaking points. And I'll let her say the other part.
I think that as far as the for better or for worse part of it, stepping away, I don't know if that's really, I don't know. I would just speak from our situation of like when we were dating. There were a lot of times where things happened and I was like ready to move. I was just like done. I was ready to give up. I was ready to throw in the towel. And every single time it was just something within me that just was like, don't walk away from it. Like, you have to fight for what you want. You have to learn how to work through those emotions, learn how to communicate what you're feeling, and help you to get through that. So I definitely don't think, and I also think that giving yourself too much time and space away will create your mind to think, because I'm a thinker. So like, it'll have your mind thinking like, okay, I can't live without this person, or I can function or maneuver. I can do all of this on my own. The things that person may have added to your life, now you're trying to figure out, how can I can do all of this on my own, or what else I can put in that space. So I don't think that all the time it needs to be any space. I feel like just being mature enough to communicate and work through those hard things, those hard conversations, and just communicating and finding a way through it.
Eric, I'm coming to you because you shared with us at the last episode that out of fear, embarrassment, and everybody knew you were trying to keep it a secret at first, but it was things were happening in front of your family that you left, and that ultimately strengthened your bond. I want to know, what were the conversations that you were having before you got to that breaking point, and what was happening, and what ultimately made you decide, I have got to move on? And when you left, did you move on with the intent of coming back, or did you move on to see where this was going to go?
So that's a lot. I'll be discussing this like for hours and hours and hours. But the conversations was basically the things were happening like right before my eyes. And then not only from the things that I saw, and I know there's this whole word, well, don't listen to what people is telling you and all this kind of stuff and things like that. But I had sources, and these were people, I felt like, I didn't think they were telling me to hurt me. I think they were telling me because they felt like I needed to know this information. So it wasn't like they weren't trying to hurt me. They were actually coming in because they felt like I needed to know this information. So if I'm presenting this to you and it's always, nope, I didn't do it. Nope, I didn't do it. But then here it is, it's popped up, it's right in front of my face. And then I'm the one who's able to verify and validate the things that was happening. Then if I keep telling you, no, we need to work on this. You can't keep doing this. We need to change things. And here I am again. And, Jason may not believe, that some of the things that some women do is based off of, or my actions was based off of what someone else did. But it was more so like, I'm here. I'm trying to work this out. I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be here. I want to be here. Like, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. And here I am. I'm trying my best. We're having those conversations. He's saying that he's going to change. Things are still not changing. He's still doing the same things over and over and over. And again, like I said, it just became sheer embarrassment. And because it came to that point, when I left, my intention was not to come back. And when I did it, it was very dramatic. He didn't even know that I was in the process of getting my own place. He had no idea. And it was just like, here, I presented it to him. These are my keys. You're helping me to move. I'm leaving. And I had to do something. I felt like I tried everything that I possibly could. But at the same token, like Jalen said, God is not the author of confusion. And while I was trying my best to honor my vows and stay with this man that I love, because I love him. You know, I'm not gonna say I love him. So it's like I'm trying my best to stick it out, and it's not working. It's just not. So when I left, my intentions was to work on me. It had nothing to do with me wanting to be in another relationship. It had nothing to do with, ultimately I was trying to hurt him. I'm not even going to lie, because I wanted him to feel like this is what life can be like without me. This is what life could be like without having your sons at home. This is what life could be like with us being separated. So I want you to feel some type of way because you've hurt me to my core. So I want you to feel some type of way about it. So my intentions was really to work on me. Mm-hmm. And figure out where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And here it is. The whole time I'm, where I wanted to be. Where's he at? Where I'm at. He's coming. He's constantly around, trying to get me back to fall in love, trying to get me back, trying to, trying to get us back together to a healthy place. And even after that, there was still things. And he mentioned it last week. There were still things that came up. But at the same time, like I said, I just feel like I'm still trying to work on me, I didn't want to give up on us. Even after a year of being separated, I didn't want to give up on us. And it felt like he also didn't want to give up either. So I didn't fault him for it because he was actually trying. Mm-hmm. So even with everything that was going on, he was still trying. And that's what made me appreciate it more, because I felt like he wanted to be with me. He wanted the marriage. He wanted the family, and he wanted those things. And that's what brought me back, because, he actually made me feel like he wanted to be here. And I felt like I was at a better place to know that I actually can do this by myself if need be. I can do it. I can, if need be, if I have to, I can do it. So I didn't have to be afraid anymore. And I'm not afraid right now, even if I have to, I'm not afraid anymore. So I'm at a better place as, just myself, with me being, the woman that I am. I'm at a better place. And I know that I can make it if I have to. So, and I think that was me just getting myself together. And now we're in just a better place now, where I think we're happier than we've ever been at this point, because we're learning how to take accountability for our actions, discuss the things that's happening. And even if one of us do make a mistake, we can talk about it, we can work past it, and we can move forward. And I think it takes two people to really be in the ring to want to make things work, and not, banging each other upside the head about the things that we did in the past, just moving forward.
Right. All right, Jennifer.
To answer the question, as far as leaving, if that's a hindrance on whether it will work or for better or for worse, I feel like it depends on the situation and it depends on the couple, because I think that sometimes it gets so overwhelming that kind of the best thing for the relationship is to step away. And I'm not saying like step away and you go do your own thing and like have a side relationship, but I mean like time alone to be able to calm your soul or calm your mind so that you can go back into the relationship and actually have a conversation. Because when emotions are too high and it's so toxic, you guys are just butting your heads against each other and you're not making any progress. Most times it's making it worse, because we're bringing up things from the past, we're hitting below the belt, we're saying random things that have absolutely nothing to do with the argument. And so in that sense, walking away to make it healthier, I totally agree with that. However, to walk away and to kind of wash your hand with the relationship, I think that does go against the for better or for worse, unless we're talking about the boundaries or the exceptions that we talked about. We're not willing to accept. Some people throughout abuse and cheating and stuff like that. Those are things that you're not willing to accept. So I'm not talking about those things. But if it's regular budding, like if you had premarital counseling and your counselor told you that you were gonna come up against these things and you're just like, no, I'm throwing in the towel because he spent $10 more than what he was supposed to spend, or we're always battling out I feel like in that sense, you're kind of giving up on your spouse. Like you're gonna have to go through things. Like one thing that I've been hearing a lot since the Jada and Will thing, love is messy. Relationships, you gotta grind. There's gonna be things that you gotta break down. There's things that you have to work on that you didn't necessarily see prior to going into a relationship, because everyone is changing. The world is changing around you. There's different dynamics. You're bringing in children, you're bringing in in-laws, and so you're bound to butt heads. But if I'm not there, I can't work. We can't work on things and I'm 50 miles away just calling you. We have to be there in your face, working towards a mutual healthy relationship.
Thank you, Jennifer. So we have, I saw your hands, I have you. So I'm going to ask a rapid fire question. And what a rapid fire question is, I'm going to ask this question, and every couple or group or an individual, you have 60 seconds and 60 seconds only to respond to that. And then right after the rapid fire, I'm coming to Tammy because I have a question for you that I got from online that I want you to address. So the rapid fire question is, Jennifer was just talking about, not allowing anything that is, like small or minute, and don't give up on your spouse. And you have to be present in order to fight and in order to work on those things, which I totally agree with. My question that I would like for you guys to answer is it possible for your presence, for you to be present physically and not present mentally? And does that change your opinion of, I need to be present in order for us to work on things? So that's what I want to address. We're going to start with the Bells, then Tammy, then Deanna, then Jennifer, then Erica, then the Greens, then Fowler Nation, in that order. So the Bells, we're starting with you. 60 seconds.
I would say yes, you would need to be present mentally, because physically just being there is not going to do anything for the situation.
I kind of agree with her. We spent like the last 2 years of our relationship semi-long distance, and a lot of times, like when we would get into intense fellowship, I'll call it, my mind would be somewhere else, and sometimes I could be there physically but not fully invested mentally. So it was a constant tug and pull. I definitely think you need to be there mentally and physically in order to make the situation go forward.
All right, Tammy.
I think it's very important that you're present both physically and mentally. If your mental is not there, it causes a gap in your relationship. It causes the other person to become frustrated. You're not really present to give your all. And ultimately, it's going to cause more confusion. It's going to cause more problems, more disrespect, more resentment. So you always need to be there mentally. And I know that from experience.
Thank you, Tammy. Deanna?
Again, being the single one, I think that sometimes it may be necessary for the person not to be there physically or mentally or emotionally if they need to heal, right? Because sometimes you can't work through anything with your partner if you don't really figure out what the root is within you, because they may just be reacting to the seeds that are in you. And so I think that it depends on the situation and what you're fighting about, right? And if it's something that both of you are fighting, or this person really can only be a support because this is your issue, I think that is the major piece of figuring out who needs to be present. But if it's both of you, obviously physically and mentally is necessary.
All right, Jennifer.
Like I said before, I think it needs to be both. However, sometimes it's hard to be there mentally and physically, and sometimes it's hard to even acknowledge that you yourself are not there mentally. There's been numerous times within our relationships that we have been fighting or even just having a regular day, and I literally was not there mentally or emotionally. But in the moment, sometimes I didn't realize that I wasn't there until I'm trying to backtrack, like, what even happened? Like, you mad because of what? Like, what did I even say? But I was kind of just on robot mode. I was just there. And so feelings were hurt, but I didn't even know how to approach it because I wasn't physically there. And I think, I mean, I'm mentally there, but I think that also goes back to kind of what Jalen was talking about, how they had spent some time apart. Within our relationship, our whole dating was apart. Like, we dated long distance, and then we came together, 2 months before we got married? Like, craziness, I know. But so we've always been physically apart. And so now we are still trying to figure out what that means to be physically and mentally there, because that's different from us. Like, any argument or any time that we spent, it was always apart. So I'm used to being alone. I'm used to doing things on my own and calling you or doing it from a distance from you, but that doesn't really work for most situations. So I think, yes, overall it needs to be together, but you have to figure out what works best for you and how to get you there. Because we can say it needs to happen, but you still have to know how that works.
All right, Erica.
I definitely feel like you have to be there. You have to give your all, period. There's no way you can be there, physically and not be there mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. At some point you have to be there, in order to, win the fight. If we're going to be in this thing together, then we have to bring everything to the table if we're going to do this thing. And if it's, I'm giving you all of me, so the expectation is that you're going to do the same thing in return and give me all of you. And I feel like in order for us to make that work, you can't just be here. Your shell, I don't want a shell. I'm not, the physical is great. That's what attracted us to each other, initially. But at the same time, I need everything from you. I need your heart. I need your mind. I need your spirit. I need everything from you in order for this to work. And if you're just going to be here, just a shell, then you might as well go on, because it means nothing to me. Like, everything got to be here with me, in order for us to make it work. And I'm going to make sure that I reciprocate that to you as well.
All right, Greens.
I think my thoughts will echo Erica's, because, a lot of people think there's like a 50-50 relationship, and usually another 50% is missing. And that's easy to kind of deal with or kind of cope with in a relationship, but that kind of leaves a lot of space for infiltration on the outside. Either may it be a person, may it be an outside influence, may it be media, may it be society. So I think a lot of the things has to do with people just understanding that you got to give as much as you can, 100% rather than 50%, because the person on the other side, your spouse, can feel that. They can feel when you're either withdrawn or you coming back, or you really don't feel this certain way, or you're not really in it, and you just basically going through the motions. So a lot of that is based off of just giving 100% effort and just being 100% there for the other person. So nothing is lacking on either side if both people are giving 100%.
I agree with my husband.
All right, Fowler Nation.
You said what?
So, we both, I'll speak to Lisa before I talk right now, but I believe that yes, you do need to be there both physically and mentally. However, per the situation, I don't believe that you have to be there physically. It depends on the situation. So I commend Erica for doing what she did, because honestly, in that situation, Jonathan was there physically, but he wasn't there mentally. So she had to do something that was best for her and her situation, which allowed him to now say, hey, you know what? I was physically here, but now I need to be mentally here, because I see what I don't want to miss out on the rest of my life. So you do need to have that together to fight. But like Jason said, one person's getting 50%. That's not going to work. I do want to make another statement that in addition to that, you have to continue to fight, because when Jalen mentioned that, the Bible said cheating and things like that, and he did give us the permission to leave. However, Jesus' word said that it wasn't meant for us to separate. It was meant for us to continue to stay married once we got married. So you continue to fight. However, you do have to do what's best for you at that particular point in time. And what Erica did was best for her. My past pastor, he was married. His wife left. And it wasn't until she left that he got on board and she went back with him. So leaving can be part of the process. It may be unconventional. but leaving can be part of the process of getting and working out those things that need to be worked out, because that leaving step may be the thing to start the spark that you need to have that conversation.
Thank you. So I do not know that I agree with that. In fact, I don't agree with it, because my thing is, if you think, let's think about sports. And it's so ironic that I chose sports because I don't even deal with sports. But if you step outside of the ring, or if you go if you walk off the field, or if you're in a boxing ring and you jump over the ropes and you run, or if you're playing tennis and the ball goes out of the net, the game is no longer in play. You're disqualified. That play is disqualified. Everything is disqualified. So saying that leaving can be a part of the process, and that it's an okay part of the process, in my opinion, causes a disqualification. Now, what I do believe is that we all have our things, right? So something, and that's why I think it's important I have said it once, and I'll continue to say it. You have got to create a dope environment in your marriage to where communication is open, free, and honest. Because the communication that you create inside of your relationship is the ring, essentially. And you have got to be vulnerable enough, to be safe enough and honest enough to bring everything inside of that ring. And anything outside of that ring kind of, in my opinion, can create infallible ground, and you can't stand on ground that's not solid. So I don't agree with you on that, Michael, but I want to go to Tammy, because I know we heard Erica had a success story in, separating and coming back. Tammy, I know you shared with us on a previous episode that you left and you shared that was a detriment to your relationship. So I want to hear from you. What were your intentions when you left? And what do you think went wrong, and why your story ended in divorce as opposed to re-sparking or reigniting a fire? The short version.
Very personal question, Mills. Good thing I'm transparent. However, I think what made my situation go wrong was my intentions when I left wasn't in support of my marriage. When I left, I definitely knew that I thought at that moment that I didn't want to be married anymore. I lost so much respect for my husband. So when I left, I didn't have an intention on working things out with him. I had all intent on being selfish, doing whatever needs to be done to make Tammy happy. Now, once I did that and I got an entanglement, when I decided I wanted to come home, that entanglement spilled over into me coming home. And even though my husband, because he got involved in some entanglements too, and during our separation, even though he had entanglements that spilled over to home too, the difference between me and him was when I left the first time, mentally, I was completely gone. And just because I had the thought of wanting to save my family, when I came back, I still was mentally gone. So I didn't put forth that effort like I should have, because mentally I just wasn't there. I didn't trust him. I didn't think he could be a better husband, but I just came back to try to make it work for my family, not necessarily for myself. So therefore it caused frustration. That's why I said it's very important that when you're coming back home or being in a situation that you have to be there all the way. Because if you're not, it's going to cause resentment towards your spouse, which may lead to abuse. And not saying that it's right or wrong, but people feel and people have emotions. So I think that's why my situation didn't work, because my entanglement spilled over into my home life. When I returned back home, my husband definitely wasn't the husband that could take what he dish out. He lost a lot of respect for me. He had a lot of resentment towards me. And because of that, it became into a toxic, abusive relationship.
Okay. Toylise? Toylise?
And because of the exact same reason, just to piggyback on what Tammy literally just said, that's why I am a firm believer in if I'm out the door, if I feel that I've reached a point in my marriage where I have to leave, for me personally, that is pretty much I'm throwing in I'm waving my white flag and I'm throwing in the towel, because while I'm yet saying that I can weather this, I can get through this, and this and that, if I get to the leaving and doing like an actual his and hers separation, for me, that's not an option, because if I leave, I'm out. Period. I don't, because then you have to think, okay, when you leave, does that mean that, you have the right to do you? Are you still honoring your marriage in your leaving? So I just don't feel that that's possible when you are in a separation where the wife is over here and the husband is over here. Space is important, but actually leaving and, I'm about to live a separate life as if I'm single, that's for me personally, that's not an option. If I'm out the door, and especially if I don't went and got my own place and things like that, good, we can still co-parent and do whatever it is that we need to do.
However, I do want to say this one thing. In the Bible, Jesus leaves room that even if you're divorced, you can still be reconciled. Yeah. So you may leave. However, you're still married. There's no divorce in the word.
I understand.
So when you sleep with someone else, you are committing adultery still. Because he's waiting for you to be reconciled to me. So leaving can be part of the process.
It can, but not for me.
I'm just saying.
If I leave, I'm gone.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that in the word, that's what that says. That's all.
Wow, so that was so much that we are unpacking, and I'm sure that we can go on and on and on and on and on with this conversation. But we are going to start the part in our episode where we give our final thoughts on the subjects, everything that we discussed. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have any questions that you would like for anybody on the panel to answer, please leave them down at the bottom of your screen. We'll be happy to answer those for you. But we're going to start with final thoughts, and we're going to start with the Greens.
So my final thought is, one, leaving is not a part of my process, and I can't get past that, period. Just because my mind will start to wonder what he did while he was gone. Even if it was nothing, my mind would just wonder. The moment you stick your private area inside another woman's private area, that's not something that I can get past, me personally, because I'm going to think about it every time. So that's just a quick on that. As far as the earlier part of the conversation when we were live on Facebook, the battle wounds and the for better or for worse, I pretty much gave my final thoughts on that. There is a limit to my worst, and I pray that I never make it there, that I never have to experience that. I understand that every couple goes through things, and Jason and I are no different. We are going to go through things, but just to put like a definite on my answer, there is a limit to my worst. But I appreciate this call. I'm happy that the guests we had today, y'all were very good. Y'all gave some good opinions. I really appreciate it. Deanna, you was on point all night, pretty much. And so I appreciate all that.
Jason,
so extra.
I was waiting you reclaim my time and give me 10 seconds all night, though. I was waiting for a proper introduction, man. I agree with, this was a very good topic with regard to understanding, each one's mate. of understanding, like, you know, where a person stands and kind of understanding, you know, where your mate's perspective is, because a lot of times the conversations that you have privately, you don't get another perspective. And some of those things that your mate might want to say or feel falls on deaf ears because, I mean, it's an argument or it's a heated discussion at that time. My opinion is, in order to have like a wholesome marriage or a wholesome relationship, which is, in my opinion, marriage is totally different than dating. No offense to anybody that's still dating or going through, you know, the dating process, but the marriage is something that is so crucial because there's so many things that's tied into it. And, you know, you make those vows, it means so much more. So the effort, in my opinion, is something that is really needed. And the understanding that it shouldn't be something that is 50-50, it should be 100%. And the effort on both sides, because if I'm going for broke, you got to go for broke. If it's something that you need to pay attention to or something I need to pay attention to, then you're my biggest interest at the end of the day, and I need to treat you like that, and that's vice versa. So no matter what goes on outside or what other outside influences, is basically us against the world. So, and that's how we approach it. We have our problems and we have our, you know, knocks, and we got the stress that everybody else deals with. But at the end of the day, it's all about what we can do to make sure that we stay strong.
All right, heading over to them Crawfords.
As always, I love these conversations. They're very enlightening. I always take a little bit of what everyone says and, you know, just kind of take a little bit and put it, you know, in my back pocket to use for later on. I just want to say I really enjoyed our guest on tonight. Y'all gave some great insights, so I will definitely take that along with me as well. I feel like there are limits definitely to the same for better or for worse. While everyone is saying what they will do, what they won't do, I am a firm believer, again, that experience is the best teacher. So you really won't know. And that's for all you, you know, youngins in the marriage life. You don't even really know yet what you will and will not do. So you can say that right now today, oh, I just will not be able to get past it. You have no idea what you will do until you are actually faced with those situations. And while everyone is saying that leaving is just not an option, well, there's a time where you have to allow yourself to get yourself together. And I feel like it's nothing wrong with taking that minute in that moment to do what I needed to do for me, to build on me. That way I'll be a better person, even for Jonathan, for that matter. That makes me a better wife for him, even with everything that makes me a better partner. And that makes us just a better, you know, that makes us just a better dynasty. I say that all the time. You know, that'll make us better together. So I feel like, yes, there are, you know, limitations, and walking away may not be what you expect or what you feel like you are going to do, or if you do it, that'll be the end of it. That's not necessarily always true, because I do believe in a God that is a miracle worker, and he will answer prayers, and he can reconcile, and he can bring you all back together. But again, that's if you're both in the ring willing to fight for it. You both have to be willing to fight for it and be willing participants to fight for it. So like I said, there's the limitations, but like I said, there's nothing that my God can't do. And like I said, he's blessing us. So I love y'all. Y'all pray for us. We celebrating our 14th wedding anniversary on Wednesday. So we're going to have us a staycation, vacation. You know how that go. So I love y'all and all that good stuff. And I'll see y'all next time.
Awesome. And happy early anniversary to them Crawfords.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Heading over to Fowler Nation.
Final thoughts. I appreciate the conversation. The topic was enlightening. I do want to say that I agree once again with Erica. Leaving is not everybody's thing. That depends, or separation, or time alone. It's not everybody's thing, you know. However, I agree with Erica in saying that you don't know what you're going to be able to deal with until the situation comes. So, you know, better or for worse, that's what it is. It's for better or it's for worse. And whatever your worse is, that's what it is. I don't think there's a line, but I do believe that separation or time apart can be part of that process. It depends on the relationship. Because like I said, even if you do go through divorce, spiritually, you're still married. God still wants you to reconcile. And I'm just glad that those people who do separate, some people do allow themselves to remain open, so to see the error, the changes and things of that nature, that they haven't gone that far to say, you know what, I'm completely cut off. And that's not to say that if you do that, that's wrong either. But I do appreciate people working it out, because in the beginning, not everybody, and I agree with Frank is saying that environment has to be created, but some relationships just don't have opportunity to create that environment for open communication and being real and things of that nature, because there's so many other factors. But it is for better or for worse. I don't believe there are limits. I don't count separation as being the end thing. I think you should always keep yourself open, because people change daily. And just because you're not there mentally now and you're there physically doesn't mean that you can't be mentally there and physically there at a later time.
Amen.
All right, going over to Deanna LaFay.
Okay. In terms of the for better or for worse, my final thoughts are going into a relationship, making sure that you know what the better is or the best is that you can expect from this person. Like basically knowing knowing the good parts of them that you're getting, so that you can be rooted in that, what you're getting from the relationship. And then also knowing that sometimes what we feel is worse is a combination of our experiences from other people. So making sure that when we do have these negative interactions with our partner, that it's not a compilation of everything that we've experienced similar to this, and that it's really strictly what I've experienced with you, so that we can talk about things that you can solve. Because if it's from someone else, there's nothing you can do about that. Even if I'm spilling out this emotion, you shouldn't have to take all of what you didn't help build. So just knowing the good things that you can ground yourself in, but then also knowing that what you give to them should be a reflection of what they've given to you, not from what you've experienced from everyone.
Awesome. Tammy?
I first off want to say that this was a very difficult conversation for me, because it hit so close to home. But what I want to leave a final thought saying this to the married couples: don't let your reactions to the bad bring your marriage to its worst, because ultimately divorce is the worst. And the way you can do this is just by staying respectful. If you have two people that's willing to make things work, and two people, excuse me because I'm getting emotional, two people that's willing to be respectful to each other in the marriage, there's no worse that can bring you guys apart. So don't let your reactions or your emotions to these things cause for you to bring your marriage to its worst.
Thank you, Tammy. Heading over to the Bells.
First, I'd just like to say thank you for having us on here. We really do appreciate the opportunity as newlyweds, being able to come in and just give our opinions and our experiences. I do appreciate the transparency from everyone else, and giving your experiences and enlightening us in a new way of some of the things that may happen in the marriage, how you may have to face those situations, and it was very enlightening on that end. One thing I can say we can all agree on is just the basis of it is just keeping Christ a part of your marriage, communicating, and being open, honest, and transparent with each other.
I pretty much agree with everything she said. Thank you guys so much again. This was very, very good. And as far as my final thoughts on for better or for worse, as most people mentioned, there is a sort of limit and a breaking point, I believe, and it just depends on the person. I do believe that God can bring you through anything, but if you are going to make it work, it has to be a consensual effort. And you have to remember as a couple not to use your partner's nakedness. And what I mean by that is their insecurities, their faults, their flaws and stuff like that against them, and not to use it as ammo, because that will only create more distrust. And it's important to be open and transparent with your partner, but move forward and not use their past mistakes against them. Not saying that you have to forget, but just in a focused movement forward. So thank you all so much again. This was great.
Absolutely. Jennifer?
So again, this is a great conversation, and I appreciate all of those that are involved, and even the viewers who are constantly giving us feedback, asking us questions, and being involved from a distance. We really appreciate you guys being a part of it. As far as the conversation is concerned, I feel like there are limits to, for better or for worse, but you have to decide what that is for yourself, just like there's limits within anything. There's boundaries, there's expectations, and you have to decide when those limits are crossed, do you leave or do you stay? I can't tell you what works best for you. You have to decide what works best for your relationship. But in everything, you should keep God first, and that will help you direct it. When it comes to taking accountability, going back to that, yes, I think that it's important for both sides to take accountability. Like we joke about men not taking accountability, and women taking more accountability. Again, it depends on the person. There's no across the board situation, but you have to decide to be your best self, and being your best self means accepting your flaws, accepting when you did wrong, and moving towards that change in order to build a better self and build a better family or a better relationship. Anything can come out of the water, whether you're in the household or outside of the household, but how bad are you going to fight for it? How bad are you going to fight for you, and how bad are you going to fight for your family? Everything that you do, you should do it to be the best that you can. I think that the things that were said today, I think it's going to help me as far as my relationship and personally, because what we are here is a platform in order to build ourselves. Yes, some of the things that we say, we are hoping that it hits something within inside of you, but it's also helping us as well to become better people, become better contributors to society.
Thanks, babe. I'm so overwhelmed with this conversation. I thought it was very powerful. I thought it was very impactful. I heard a lot of great things. I am so in belief that God always knows what he is doing. Our guest today knocked it out the ballpark. So thank all of you guys, the Bells and Deanna. So appreciated your perspectives and everything that you guys brought to the conversation. I will say, getting back to what we spoke about today, I believe that there are limits to everything. There's a speed limit, and if you go over the speed limit, you get the ticket. I do believe that while there are limits, that there really should be nothing that separates you and that detaches you, and it is my hope and prayer that nothing gets to the point where you have to separate permanently. And if you do get to that place where you do have to, or you feel like you have to separate permanently because you are overwhelmed, it is always my hope and my prayer that reconciliation can happen, because we do have the ministry of reconciliation. That's what we do. We were created to have that. That is in us. It's a part of who we are as humans. So that's just my final thoughts on that. I love the discussion. And if you have any other questions about this topic or any other topics, please leave us a comment. If you have not already, on Facebook, like the page, comment, share the page. You can find us on Instagram at Couples in Conversations. You can find us on Twitter at Couples in Conversations, and you can go to our YouTube page. Please come back on next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to be talking about some great things then as well. A couple of things came up in our conversation today that we're going to kind of talk about. We're going to talk about how the abuser does not get to decide how the abused responds. And we're also going to talk about using your mouth for love and not as a weapon, because a lot of times we use our mouths as weapons instead of aids of love. So we're going to be kind of breaking that down on our next conversation. Thank you guys so much for joining in, tuning in. We love you guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time with Couples in Conversation.